Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null. For all of you in this audience who cares about your mind, and that's just about everyone, and those of you who are beginning to lose your sense of concentration, your focus, your memory, or maybe someone you know is starting to have some senior moments, or those of you who are senior thinking, is there anything I can do to slow this down, to reverse it? What if someone has Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, dementia? There's a lot that we can do to help slow it down and even improve those conditions. Join me now as we take an in-depth look in several parts to mind power. I grew up in a small town in West Virginia called Parkersburg, right on the Ohio River. In between Charleston and Huntington and Steubenville and Weirton, all within about 100 miles. Very polluted place. But for a young kid, it was idyllic. You could go anywhere. We were pre the drug generation. We didn't have computers or iPods or laptops and cell phones, and most of the time we were outside playing. And we were very energetic. And when we came home, we ate together as a family. And I remember my mother was very conscientious, tried to feed us right. We didn't live off junk foods. We didn't have the fast food franchises all over the place. Then when I became a teenager, I noticed how many of the people were, they were sick. My aunts and uncles, and they all had diabetes and hypertension and cancer. And by the time they were 60, it was just expected that they just wouldn't have the memory they had. And when I asked my mom and dad, they said, well, it's just normal aging. So if you lived to be 65 or 70, it was thought you had a good life. I'm Gary Null. It's not a good life. They should have doubled that. When you think it's good to reach 75, you're only middle-aged, biologically. Well, why are we not living longer? Why are we not healthier? Why do we have $2 trillion being spent on disease? Why do we have an epidemic of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, forgetfulness? And now, my generation, the baby boomers, are manifesting these conditions. But we don't have to. This program is going to be the first step. It's a journey of healing, a journey of wellness, a journey of hope, and it's a journey that you can take.
We have a neurodegenerative disease epidemic in America. Our children are born with more attention deficits, and the catastrophe is they're all being treated with amphetamines or frequently. Our teenagers with their mood disturbances and their damaged brains are choosing ecstasy and things that will damage their brain, like marijuana, and lower their memory and IQ. Our middle-aged Americans are desperately depressed because of brain injuries and damages, and they're choosing antidepressants and anxiety agents. And 50% of our older Americans are demented by 80 and are dementing from 50 on.
There are a number of factors that society has a responsibility to address because the society, the culture, the world are failing their citizens because depression is becoming the leading cause of death around the globe. This was announced by the World Health Organization that by the year 2020, depression is going to be the leading cause of death.
We've had such a problem, and I as a psychiatrist can really speak to this. We've had a tremendous problem with prescriptions. An individual goes into their doctor, says they're depressed, says they're anxious, says they can't sleep, and they're immediately handed a prescription. They've had a 10-minute consultation, they're handed a prescription, and that's supposed to be the answer. Well, it's not the answer, because it's not addressing the issue at the base, at the root where the problem is happening.
In this program, I'm going to show you how easy it is, to reverse disease. If you believe that it's possible to improve on heart disease, cholesterol, without the statin drugs, depression without the tranquilizers, to get rid of weight without dieting, you're right. But we're focusing specifically upon the brain. That's right, the brain aging. But here's the nice thing. Whatever causes the brain to age causes every cell in the body to age. Whatever will help the brain is going to help the rest of the body. This protocol is not only going to help you get your thought power back, cognition back, memory back, but prevent that from declining and deteriorating, as you've seen so many of our senior citizens have. Between the senior citizens and the baby boomers and our children, we're talking about over 250 million Americans could be affected.
You know, today we have Americans suffering from a whole host of mood disorders, brain fog, depression, anxiety, these problems that weren't seen as prevalent as we see them today in the past. Partially it's because our diets today and the diets we eat as children are so low in natural vegetation. We're deficient in these phytochemicals and antioxidants that enable the brain cells to communicate and develop in a normal environment. And we're seeing tremendous nutritional deficiencies of both the discovered and the undiscovered nutrients that maximize human function, including human brain function.
If we're struggling with nutrient deficiencies, some of the symptoms that one might notice include declining of memory, concentration, lack of ability to remember items, and also just brain fatigue. People just can't focus, they don't concentrate, they don't feel well, they feel unwell.
First and foremost, we can't help someone if we don't stop what's causing the problem. And the problem is it's cumulative. So here are the things that are causing your brain and your body to age prematurely. So eliminate these causes and immediately you're going to see a difference. Even before we cleanse, detoxify, and rejuvenate. Here are the primary causes of brain and body aging. One, right at the top, oxidative stress. Now what does that mean? It means when I exercise, that's good. It's good for my hormones, it's good for my muscle tension, it's good for cleansing, and it's also good for my heartbeat, my pulse. Got to get it down. But it also has a byproduct. The byproduct of exercise is oxidative stress, meaning a lot of free radicals. And when those free radicals hit your cell, well, just imagine you got 65 trillion to 100 trillion cells. Free radicals hit the cell. How many times? 10,000 gene alterations per cell per day. And all it takes is a cell to get hit and damaged and not have enough reparative or restorative enzymes and to go in there and repair the damage, and you've prematurely aged that cell.
If you have inflammatory chemistry going on and you're releasing these chemicals called cytokines, you're reducing the amount of oxygenation that can get to your cells, and you're damaging the cell membranes that are responsible for carrying information and nutrients into and out of your cells. The brain is particularly susceptible to antioxidant damage, and as we get oxidative stress and we don't have enough antioxidants, we accelerate the aging process with these cells.
When you smoke, oxidative stress from the smoking. Drink, oxidative from the alcohol. When you're working in a polluted environment, you breathe in that. It creates premature aging of the cell. Even sleeping good at night by taking melatonin, 3 milligrams before you go to bed, 1 to 3 milligrams, helps protect your brain from oxidative stress and free radicals. People are not sleeping right. Why? They're eating before they go to bed and raise their blood sugar. That's bad. They're leaving lights on in the room. That's bad. They're having noise in the room. That's bad. Or electromagnetic pulses from electrical and digital equipment around them. That's bad. All of which adversely stimulates the brain so you stay awake instead of getting that deep, good night's sleep.
One of the most important ways of healing is through sleep. When sleep occurs, the painful stimuli of ordinary life are blotted out, and the pleasurable stimuli of the warmth of the bed help rebuild tissues.
Next, chronic inflammation. Now, what's chronic inflammation? Arthritis is a symptom, fibromyalgia is a symptom, cancer, heart disease, atherosclerosis, arterial sclerosis, dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. These are all inflammatory diseases. That's right. What causes the inflammation? Well, it goes from here. the hot dog, the hamburger, the french fries, the cheeseburger, the pizza, the cola, the sugar, the artificial sweetener, the MSG, all of these, how they're processed, the cooking creates heterocyclic amines in the meat. The bun, the roll, the toast, that creates acrylamides. You put them together, you've got two known highly inflammatory causing agents, acrylamides and heterocyclic amines. I'm not even counting the arachidonic acid from the meat. I'm not even counting the saturated fat, which is highly inflammatory. I'm not even including the hormones that are in that beef. I'm not including the pesticides in there, which also are inflammatory. So that is inflammation.
We have to talk about inflammation. We have to talk about the things, what it does to your body. It's very, very potent. And everything what comes like an old age and the problem with cognitive decline starts from the very beginning. So before we'll address the symptoms, what we have to do, we have to start with the healthy mothers. We have to start with a healthy environment. We have to start with the healthy bodies. The ounce of prevention is definitely pound for cure.
Chronic inflammation is something that can be triggered once again by stress, by environmental load, dietary deficiencies. Any of these areas can contribute to the chronic inflammatory pathway that can lead to diseases such as Alzheimer's, dementia, heart disease, diabetes. And I think what we'll find as we continue to look at individuals is this inflammation process is going on and creating several sets of symptoms and diseases simultaneously in the individual.
Everywhere we look, we're taking in inflammatory agents, highly processed foods, inflammatory. Now, this goes in the system and starts to digest. Then the body says, uh-oh, inflammatory agents, and starts secreting cytokines and tumor necrosis factor alpha and interleukin-6. And then those create free radicals. So from a hot dog or a hamburger or a pizza or a cola to free radicals, it's just a series of biochemical steps, and then boom, the cell gets hit 10,000 times each cell a day. And then you damage the cell. What would turn off the inflammation? Well, fish, cold water fish, or omega-3 fatty acids, or oil of primrose, or coconut oil, but we're not taking those in. We're taking in the very things that cause the inflammation.
There's a host of things that are really damaging to the health and especially our brain. Colas, soft drinks full of corn syrup and sugar and caffeine, high sugary foods, fried foods, chips, all kinds of baked in foods, even things like cold cereals, the sweetened cereals are very bad. Of course, though, that hot dogs and luncheon meats and pastrami's, bologna, sausages, cheeses, because they're rich in saturated fat. There's lots of things that we eat in America today that's very harmful for our health and our brain health.
Inflammatory agents cause the cells of the body to be damaged, and that builds up plaque. And in the brain, that is called amyloid plaque, and that is a precursor to senility, forgetfulness, and other brain disorders. Next, DNA damage. Well, inflammation causes DNA damage. Alcohol will cause your cells to be damaged. One glass of alcohol can kill over 1 million brain cells, liver cells, and kidney cells. And then think of all the alcohol you've had. Not to get drunk, just social drinking, like my parents. Killing cells. So when my father died at 58, my mother died at 58, one of heart attack and the other of cancer, they weren't 58 biochemically, they were 150 biochemically. They had so damaged by smoking, drinking, saturated fats, not exercising, not taking supplements, and stress. Stress creates hormones. Cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline. This is a hormone cascade. And when you have all these hormones constantly going off, it's like trying to sleep, and every 10 minutes a siren rings for a fire, and you wake up. You can't get back to sleep. And just when you're starting to do another siren, that's what happens when you're stressed. And what do we do with stress? Instead of dealing with the stress appropriately, no. We drink, we smoke, we overeat, we take tranquilizers, take drugs, we go shopping, we do all the wrong things, and the stress is still there. Stop drinking coffee, stop drinking colas, and hence stop the highly anabolic, very acidic reaction in the stomach. Stop DNA damage.
Antioxidants are a very important supplement to take. a group of supplements to take that will help fight what's called the free radicals. Those are the bad guys. These are bad molecules that are causing DNA damage to the cells. However, if we take enough antioxidants, we can actually neutralize those bad free radicals and give our brain cells a chance to recover and restore function. Our body chemistry changes as a result of stress. We actually use up the raw materials that we need to make the feel-good chemicals for our brain. We don't have enough serotonin, dopamine, and those sound like kind of big words, but those are the neurotransmitters, the feel-good chemicals that get used up to make adrenaline and cortisol, which are the stress hormones.
Turn off the stress, you turn off the hormones. When you turn off the hormones of stress, you protect the cell. No smoking, drinking, and junk food, you protect the cell. Then when you're creating oxidative stress and you stop that, you're protecting the cell. Then we have mitochondrial energy depletion. Now what does that mean? Inside the cells, the brain, the heart, every cell in the body has little energy factories called mitochondria. You have a few hundred to a few thousand. The brain and heart has more because there's more energy required from the heart and the brain. Well, what happens when you start to get older? Forgetful, brain fog, can't remember. That's lack of energy in the mitochondria.
Because the energy factory of the body depends on the healthy brain.
We have fatty acid imbalance. When you have the right balance of fatty acids, the brain is protected and it is functioning better, as are your joints. If you got rid of the arachidonic acid from meat and dairy, and you started putting in coconut oil and walnut oil and flaxseed oil and eating primrose oil, watch your joints better lubricate. Just 2 ounces of emulsified cod liver oil on an empty stomach in the morning, and watch how your arthritis pain diminish. But we're not doing that. We're putting in the wrong fats, the saturated fats.
Basically, your brain is a bag of water wrapped in a membrane of choline-like compounds and lipids like fish oil. And so you have to constantly replenish it. You cannot have a dehydrating brain, or you lose your speed of brain processing.
So fatty acid imbalance is a cause of aging. Excitotoxins damage the brain. Artificial sweeteners, MSG, preservatives can cause such excitement within the brain that it agitates the brain, can actually cause brains to die, brain cells to die. In children, it causes them not to be able to sit still. They're bouncing off the wall. They don't have the right breakfast. And then finally, we have circulatory defects. We have a deficit of blood and nutrients going to the brain. Why? Because, well, our arteries are clogged or occluded, because we're eating foods that don't promote proper circulation. We're not taking cayenne and hawthorn and coenzyme Q10 and vitamin C, all of which stimulate proper circulation. We're not exercising our whole body, which promotes proper circulation.
When you restrict blood flow, you restrict oxygen delivery to a very vital area in the brain.
The brain is being fed by the carotid arteries, the transcranial arteries or middle cerebral arteries, but a group of arteries and even small vessels. Any degree of clogging with cholesterol or plaque from inflammation or calcium leaching from your bones and depositing on the walls of blood vessels results in premature aging of the brain. From 40 on, most individuals have decreased blood flow into the brain, resulting in the brain slowing down and losing memory, losing power, losing stability, and losing sleep or synchrony.
A blockage of blood vessels slowly over time, where a part of the brain is actually starved of nutrients, can all lead to stroke. Stroke is a potentially lethal and often devastating injury to the brain, and it can occur in 2 different forms. A blockage of blood vessels slowly over time, where a part of the brain is actually starved of nutrients, or a hemorrhage, often occurring in association with high blood pressure.
Improvement of circulation to the brain can actually make the brain more efficient and even reverse some of the potential problems that we associate with aging of the brain.
These are the primary causes of why we prematurely age the body and the brain. Stop those, and you've made a major step in reversing the aging process.
Many people, many scientists, in fact, who have trained, they are very great in their craft, but they're very narrow. And yet what we presently know, which is quite wonderful, is trivial compared to what is unknown in the universe. And it is in this unknown part, by reaching the second branch of consciousness and surrendering or realigning our consciousness to the larger self and service of the larger self, then we begin to develop our intuition.
Intuition is a clear knowing. You know, though you don't know how you know. Or one of my favorite definitions is that it's the deepest wisdom of the soul. Now, since the intuitive mind speaks in pictures, symbols, and images, I could give you a very graphic definition as well. It could be a lightning flash. Intuition comes in a flash. It's a puzzle piece. It's like that aha, light bulb going off, that bright idea.
Most of science today is unwilling to look at the whole huge information field of psychoenergetic phenomena. It can't be explained by the conventional framework because the conventional framework is too small, and so they reject it. And in this, they're practicing scientism rather than science.
If we change our thinking, we change our feelings. If we change our feelings, we change our behavior. If we change our behavior, then the result changes. Because a lot of our behavior depends on our belief system, how we see, how we view the world, and how we view ourselves in that world, which is called self-image.
All humans have within themselves the apparatus to become much, much more than they presently are. And so if one works with this, with intention, and recognizing you have the ability to do this, then you find you evolve from a normal human, a U1 gauge type, mainly human, to an adept who manifests all kinds of qualities, intellectual, spiritual, emotional, psychic, etc. In my view of humans and the world, every one of us will eventually evolve along that path and gain those capacities within ourselves. And as we do, we now have fulfilled the intention for us being here, and that is to become co-creators with our spiritual parents.
So we've learned that oxidative stress from drinking, smoking, exercising, being around pollutions in the environment. Think of all the people where I grew up. I grew up in the dirtiest place in America, the Ohio Valley. It was one of the most beautiful places. My goodness, Blennerhassett Island, where Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr had their famous duel. I used to be able to look at that from a farm that we would stay on, right down the banks and across the river, and there was Blennerhassett Island. Then it was pure. Then all the factories came, all the big industries, and then the pollution came. Before I moved to New York City for about 6 months, I lived in Wheeling, West Virginia, and Steubenville, Ohio, and Weirton, West Virginia. They're all kind of clumped together, 10, 15 miles apart on the Ohio River. I would walk out of my house in the morning, there'd be a car, and the car would look red, but my car wasn't red. That was from all of the industrial effluents and soot and pollutants that would come out of those stacks from the steel mills and land on the car. But the ground looked that way. Everything looked like someone took a shaker of paprika and just everywhere. Everything was a little stupid little red dot. Everyone you spoke to, how you doing? Okay. Really? They'd be coughing and wheezing. Black lung, brown lung, well, I don't know what it is that's in there. Going to see a doctor? No, I can handle it. Where I came from, everybody can handle it. What happened to Joe? He's dead. Well, he didn't handle that very well, God. But that's where I grew up. No environmental protection, no one ever getting exams. You know, you're just working, then you're sick, and then you're dead. You know, and that's the way it was. Massive pollution in the Canal Valley for about 100 miles down that Ohio River. One steel mill or chemical mill, and you could smell every kind of odor. Well, I'll tell you, if you're smelling something, you're breathing it. You breathe it in, it goes to every cell in the body, including passing the blood-brain barrier that it normally would trap certain pollutants. Hey, we're out of time for this segment, but there's more to come, several more segments to come. I'll join you next week when we continue watching Mind Power here on The Gary Null Show. Thanks for watching.